Today we're going to be breaking down a trade from the 2012 offseason. While neither side has any active players left, it was a huge deal at the time, and there were many interesting players on both sides. This is the RA Dickey trade tree. After the 2012 season, the Blue Jays were on a buying spree. They swung a massive 12-player trade with the Marlins to net them Jose Reyes and Mark Burley, one I may cover if I ever really want to punish myself. Looking for more starting pitching help, they set their sights on RA Dickey. Dickey was coming off a phenomenal 2012 season. The 37-year-old journeyman Knuckleballer had a 20-6 record, 230 strikeouts, 3 complete game shutouts, and won the NL Cy Young Award. But with the Mets well out of contention and with Dickey's value at an all-time high, they decided to move him. So here's the trade. The Blue Jays got R.A. Dickey and catchers Mike Nikias and Josh Thole. And the Mets got 3 prospects, outfielder Wilmer Becerra, pitcher Noah Syndergaard, catcher Travis d'Arnaud, and they got catcher John Buck. So how did the Blue Jays do? Well, they signed Dickey to an extension immediately after the trade to keep him in Toronto through 2016, and before spring training he was named their opening day starter. Now, in 2013 or 2014, Dickey wasn't that great. He was still a Chad innings eater, throwing over 215 innings and leading MLB with 34 starts each year. But his ERA plus dropped back to league average. He did win the pitching Gold Glove for his defensive play in 2013, but he finished each year with a 14-13 record. 2015 started off terribly for Dickey, as he had a 3-10 record and a FIP over 5 heading into the All-Star break. But he had a really strong second half, finishing the year with an 11-11 record and a 105 ERA+. And the Blue Jays made the playoffs. Dickey started Game 4 of the ALDS against the Rangers, becoming the oldest player to make his playoff debut at age 40. Unfortunately, in 2016, Dickey declined further, finishing with a 10-16 record and a 96 ERA+. The Blue Jays added more starters at the deadline, and Dickey made only 3 starts in September, and he was left off their postseason roster. After the 2016 season, Dickey left in free agency. In his 4 years in Toronto, he had a 49-52 record, a 100 ERA+, and 7.1 WAR. Mike Nikias appeared in 1 game with the Blue Jays in 2013. He didn't even get a plate appearance. He was used as a defensive replacement late in the game. He spent all of 2014 in the minors, and then he retired after the season. Josh Thole spent most of the next 4 years as the Blue Jays' backup catcher, and most of that time as R.A. Dickey's personal catcher. And he just wasn't good. In 170 games, he hit just 2 homers, and he slashed 200, 275, 248 for a 46 OPS plus and minus 2.2 WAR, and he left as a free agent after 2016. So altogether, the Blue Jays got 4.9 WAR out of this trade, which isn't terrible, but is not really what you want when you're acquiring a guy to be your ace. Now, did the Mets get enough value back? Well, Becerra never reached the majors with the Mets. He left as a free agent after the 2018 season. Noah Syndergaard reached the majors in May of 2015 for the Mets, and he quickly cemented himself a spot in their rotation. His first 2 years in Queens were very good. He finished 4th in NL Rookie of the Year voting in 2015, and in 2016 he made the All-Star game, finished 8th in NL Cy Young voting, and received MVP votes. In the Mets' run to the World Series in 2015, Syndergaard was elite, with great starts against the Dodgers in the NLDS, the Cubs in the NLCS, and the Royals in the World Series. Syndergaard started on opening day in 2017 for the Mets, and while he performed well in April, he picked up a few injuries and wound up missing most of the season. Syndergaard started on opening day again in 2018, and while he had another couple injuries that year, they were minor enough that he still made 25 starts. And he had a solid rebound year, including the first 2 complete games of his career, including a shutout to the Marlins to end the season. In 2019, Syndergaard had his worst year as a Met, though there still were some highlights. He pitched a phenomenal game against the Reds in May, a complete game shutout where he struck out 10 and also drove in the Mets' only run. He finished the year below 100 ERA plus for the first time in his career, and he gave up the most earned runs in the NL with 94. Syndergaard then missed all of 2020 recovering from Tommy John surgery and most of 2021 as well. He returned in September and made 2 short starts and then became a free agent. In his 6 seasons with the Mets, Syndergaard had a 47-31 record, a 119 ERA plus, and 13.7 WAR. The Mets gave Syndergaard a qualifying offer, meaning they got a draft pick as compensation when he left. That pick was 75th overall in the 2022 draft, and the Mets used it on high school shortstop Nick Morabito. Morabito was converted to an outfielder in 2023, and that year he reached low A and he looked really good. At just 20 years old, he's someone to keep an eye on that could eventually reach the majors and play for the Mets. Travis d'Arnaud was called up in August of 2013. He spent parts of the next 7 seasons with the Mets. He showed flashes throughout his time, including finishing 7th in Rookie of the Year voting in 2014, but various injuries limited his playing time. He was concussed in 2014, he broke his hand and hyperextended his elbow in 2015, he strained his shoulder in 2016, suffered a bruised wrist in 2017, and tore his UCL in April of 2018, limiting him to just 4 games. He only broke 100 games played twice, in 2014 and 2017. His best season, 2015, was when the Mets made their run to the World Series. d'Arnaud played in just 67 games, but he slashed 260, 340, 485 for a 126 OPS plus and 1.5 WAR. In those playoffs, his only postseason action as a Met, he struggled. He batted 182 and struck out more than once a game. Heading into the 2019 season, the Mets were expected to let d'Arnaud become a free agent, but they surprisingly tendered him a $3.5 million contract and even got rid of other catchers to ensure he had space to stay on their roster. He began the season hurt, and when he returned, he got off to the worst start of his career, with just 2 hits and 23 at-bats. The Mets designated him for assignment at the end of April and then released him in early May. In his time with the Mets, d'Arnaud put up a 94 OPS plus and 1.9 WAR across 407 games. Now, fortunately for d'Arnaud and unfortunately for the Mets, he managed to turn his career around after leaving. And in the last 4 years with the rival Atlanta Braves, he's been an All-Star, won a Silver Slugger, and in 2021 won the World Series. He often speaks negatively of his treatment by the Mets at the end of his tenure, and he's even said they're the opponent that makes him the angriest. John Buck began 2013 as the Mets starting catcher, and he was okay. He put up an 85 OPS plus and .6 WAR in 101 games. In August, when the Mets promoted d'Arnaud to the majors, he took the starting job, so they traded Buck. Buck was traded with outfielder Marlon Byrd to the Pirates for infield prospect Dilson Herrera and a player to be named later. Herrera debuted with the Mets in August of 2014, and he spent parts of the next 2 seasons in the majors. In his 49 games, Herrera put up a 93 OPS plus and 0 WAR. At the trade deadline in 2016, with the Mets making a playoff push, they traded Herrera. Herrera was traded with pitching prospect Max Wotel to the Reds for outfielder Jay Bruce. Bruce struggled down the stretch for the Mets in 2016, but came into 2017 strong, leading the team with 29 homers through 103 games. In his 153 total games across the 2 seasons, he put up a 108 OPS plus and 2.7 WAR. In August, with the Mets out of contention and Bruce approaching free agency, they traded him. Bruce was traded to Cleveland for pitching prospect Ryder Ryan, who never reached the majors for the Mets. After the 2020 season, he was sent as the player to be named later to complete a trade from that year's deadline. And that trade was acquiring Todd Frazier from Texas. Frazier had finished out the 2020 season with the Mets, and he wasn't very good. He put up a 74 OPS plus and just .1 WAR in 14 games, and he had left in free agency. And all the way back here, this player to be named later was pitcher Vic Black. Black spent the next year and a half in the Mets bullpen, and he was decent. In 56 appearances, he had a 125 ERA plus and .5 WAR. He spent 2015 in the minors, and then he left in free agency after the season. So altogether, the Mets cut 19.5 WAR out of this trade. Now, most of that is Noah Syndergaard, but turning a veteran into a young prospect doesn't always pan out, and it did here for the Mets. So the Mets are clearly the winner of this trade. Syndergaard's the best player on either side of this deal, and trading a 37-year-old pitcher as good as he was and getting significant value back is great in any case. And so I'm really impressed with what the Mets did here, managing to get a really good pitcher in return for an aging starter. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this trade tree. I mean, the Mets are pretty clear winners here, but if you have thoughts, let me know anyways, and like and subscribe if you made it this far. And I'll see y'all next time.